As President Trump's ex-lawyer was headed to jail, Trump got definitive, ironclad proof that he did not collude with Russia from the president of Russia. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. After Special Counsel Robert Mueller spent 2 years putting together a 400-page report documenting President Trump's various links to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Trump decided that Friday, as he was in the middle of staging an unprecedented standoff with Congress over his administration's handling of that report, was the perfect time to brag about his close relationship with Vladimir Putin.
I had a very good talk with President Putin, probably over an hour, and we talked about many things.
Mr. President, did you address the election meddling issues that came up in the Mueller report with Mr. Putin today?
We discussed it. He actually sort of smiled when he said something to the effect that it started off as a mountain and it ended up being a mouse, but he knew that because he knew there was no collusion whatsoever.
And I'm sorry, can we go back to this?
We discussed it. He actually sort of smiled.
How did you know he was smiling? Did you try to call him and accidentally hit the FaceTime button, Grandpa? Putin doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would FaceTime unless he's beaming into the UN on a giant screen demanding $1 billion or he'll kill James Bond. But I would definitely believe Putin was smiling when they talked. 99% of the time he looks like this, but when he sees Trump, he lights up like he just heard there was a sale on poison. Now, given that Trump and his Attorney General William Barr have repeatedly lied about the Mueller report, Democrats in the House have asked for Mueller himself to come testify. And on Sunday, one Democrat said they'd reached a tentative date of May 15th for Mueller to testify. So naturally, Trump freaked out on Twitter.
After spending more than $35 million over a 2-year period interviewing 500 people using 18 Trump-hating angry Democrats and 49 FBI agents, all culminating in a more than 400-page report showing no collusion, why would the Democrats in Congress now need Robert Mueller to testify? Are they looking for a redo because they hated seeing the strong no collusion conclusion? There was no crime except on the other side, incredibly not covered in the report. And no obstruction. Bob Mueller should not testify. No redos for the Dems.
Okay, first of all, no redos? How is it that Trump always seems to be 100 years old and 7 years old at the same time? Watches Fox News, 100. Thinks trucks are rad, 7. Thinks Robert E. Lee is rad, 100. Likes McDonald's, 7. Second, I thought you said Mueller exonerated you. Why don't you want him to testify? I'm afraid he'll make me look too innocent. I have to maintain some of my criminal mystique. It really doesn't help your case when you tell the cops you have an alibi, but they can't talk to anyone who can verify it. Oh, Brad can tell you, I was bowling during the robbery. But whatever you do, don't talk to Brad. But we need to hear from Mueller himself because Trump and his Attorney General have spent weeks lying about what Mueller wrote in his report. You might remember the report concluded basically what any rational person who has spent the last 2 years paying attention to the news expected it might say. That even though there was no criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia, there were numerous links between the Russian government and the Trump campaign, and the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts. So the Trump campaign was specifically informed over and over again that Russia was trying to help them win the election by offering dirt on Hillary Clinton, and over again, the Trump campaign invited and welcomed that help. Most people, if you offered them a free TV and said, I stole this from Best Buy, they'd say, I don't want that and I'm calling the cops. But if you offered it to Trump, he'd mount it on his wall with a plaque under it that said, free TV stolen from Best Buy. You might also remember that when Barr issued his infamous 4-page summary of Mueller's report in March, he left out all that information and all the evidence Mueller had gathered on obstruction of justice. So Mueller, who never speaks publicly, took the extraordinary step of writing to Barr to complain to him that Barr's letter exonerating Trump did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of this office's work and conclusions. Context, nature, and substance. So basically everything. Barr even got the author's name wrong. In fact, Mueller's report listed 10 separate times Trump may have obstructed justice during the investigation. Now, one of those 10 instances involves Trump's former White House counsel, Don McGahn. McGahn told Mueller that Trump had ordered him twice to fire Mueller. He was so concerned about it, he then told Chief of Staff Reince Priebus and even used some colorful language.
According to the report, President Trump ordered former White House counsel Don McGahn to have Mueller fired. The president called McGahn at home and directed him to call the acting attorney general, Rod Rosenstein, and say that the special counsel had conflicts of interest and must be removed.
It's also the colorful reporting from this report where Don McGahn says to Reince Priebus, which is the third witness to this incident, the president asked me to do some crazy.
It doesn't surprise me that Trump would tell his aides to do crazy to interfere in an investigation. He probably tells them to do crazy just to pass the time. Rudy, do that thing where you pull the skin all the way back behind your head. Thank you, Rudy. You've cheered me up. So Democrats want McGahn to testify in public. Now, he's already testified to Mueller, and Trump and Barr have both claimed that the report exonerates Trump, so you'd think they'd have no problem with McGahn speaking publicly. And yet on Friday, Trump said he might invoke executive privilege to stop McGahn from testifying to Congress.
Mr. President, have you decided whether you'll invoke executive privilege as it relates to Don McGahn?
That'll all be determined over the next week or so.
But you said it was done.
But, you know, I will say this. There's been no president in history that has given what I've given in terms of looking at just a total witch hunt. I let him interview the lawyer, the White House lawyer, for 30 hours. Think of that, 30 hours.
Yeah, but do you understand how bad that sounds for you? If your friend went to therapy and you said, "How was it?" and they said, "I was there for 30 hours," you'd be like, "Damn, you must be dealing with some crazy." Now, all of this was happening. All of this was happening as Trump's former lawyer and personal fixer, Michael Cohen, was preparing to report to jail in part for a crime involving the president. And in a press conference before he reported to prison today, Cohen hinted that there was even more to come.
I hope that when I rejoin my family and friends, that the country will be in a place without xenophobia, injustice, and lies at the helm of our country. There still remains much to be told, and I look forward to the day that I can share the truth.
Wait, there's more? Well, tell us. You can't just hint at something like that and then peace out for 3 years. It's like if you're about to go under for surgery and your doctor leans over and says, "Okay, we're just going to take out your appendix and then maybe some other stuff." You'll just find out what when you wake up. Cohen keeps dropping hints like this at his hearing in February, where he named Trump as the individual who directed the illegal hush money scheme to cover up the affair with Stormy Daniels. Cohen hinted that the president had broken even more laws that we're not aware of.
Is there any other wrongdoing or illegal act that you are aware of regarding Donald Trump that we haven't yet discussed today?
Yes.
What? How do you leave something like that just hanging out there? It's like if you're at a party playing Never Have I Ever and someone goes, "Never have I ever fallen into a toilet and gotten stuck there for 30 days, surviving only on toilet water until a friend found me and called 911 and they had to lift me out of the building on a crane while I was still stuck in the toilet and take me to the hospital where the toilet was surgically removed from my butt. And then one guy just quietly takes a sip of his beer and goes, "Okay, who's next?" Seriously, can someone maybe go find Cohen and, ask him a follow-up question? And we all know where he is. Before he went to prison, he was spotted in Manhattan all the time. And on Saturday, cameras were literally following him down the street paparazzi style. I mean, look at this. This guy has more paparazzi following him than I do. One time, a single photographer followed me for 45 minutes. When I asked him to stop, he said, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were the guy from The Office." So Trump's ex-fixer reported to jail today, and on top of that, we have more than 400 pages of evidence in which it's clear that the president's campaign benefited from a criminal conspiracy to steal information during the 2016 election, and then repeatedly lied about it and tried to stop the investigation of it. We need Mueller and McGahn to testify, and we need Congress to do its job. Otherwise, Trump will have at least 2 more years to indulge in his favorite activity.
Crazy.
This has been a Closer Look.